Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm a journalist, author, interviewer, and broadcaster. And it all began for me in a way on March the 1st, 1985, after I interviewed one of my music heroes, Leonard Cohen. I decided that night that I must track down more of my music heroes to talk with. As for Tom Jones, I wouldn't say he was exactly a music hero in the same sense that Leonard Cohen or Elvis or Joni Mitchell were, but I loved some of his recordings. In fact, one of the first singles I ever bought was Tom's early 45, Once Upon a Time, which I thought was better than It's Not Unusual. I also owned Along the Way and loved many tracks on his early albums such as Along Came Jones, The Atomic Jones, Green Green Grass of Home, and 13 Smash Hits, which remains my favourite of his early record releases. I've also since learned that Elvis Presley and his wife Priscilla felt much the same about that album. Speaking of Elvis, what follows is a fragment of the conversation I had with Tom the first time I interviewed him in 1989. This part is about Elvis. As I said earlier, I'm a huge Presley fan, and I had been aware that Tom and Elvis met for the first time while Elvis was making the movie Paradise Hawaiian Style, and that seeing Tom Jones in Vegas in 1968 was part of what inspired Elvis to stage a comeback in Vegas the following year. But what I didn't know, and by the way, this is not widely known, if it's known at all outside Tom's circle, is that around 1969 or 1970, Elvis said to him, "I've tried everything," meaning drugs, "to try stay sane." Nor did I know that according to Tom, or at least an unnamed female who visited Elvis at home during his final years, that the Memphis Mafia were rolling joint after joint for the man. It's all so sad.
That the actually hearing the Green Green Grass of Home apparently led to Presley weeping on his knees in the Gracelands, thinking he'd seen his mother. It was after he heard it on the bus.
Yeah, well, it started off with him. He was driving
Rolling.
back from LA to Memphis after he finished the movie.
But he then went into the house and he kind of apparently cracked up behind somebody. Did you ever see that more private, pained side of Elvis? Tortured.
I could see there was something wrong with him. That he wasn't completely.
But when you had your talks about the
control.
meaning of life and stuff like that, did he never reveal?
Oh yeah.
Go right down to the heart of it and say
Yeah.
exactly why, the horror about.
Well, he gave me a book that I wish I had with me. It's he read a book, a small book once, that something about I can't remember the title of it. Yeah, it's like an eternal life.
Right.
I think it's called The Eternal Life, and it's about God being within you. It's all within yourself.
Right.
To believe in yourself. And he read this book. He liked it so much that he had some printed up.
Right.
And he gave them to people he liked. So he gave one to me, and he said, he couldn't understand why I didn't take drugs, or why I had never dabbled with them. Do I ever get very depressed? And I said, no. And he said, well, then how can you stay sane? I said, because I really love what I do, and I enjoy it, and take advantage of it, rather than think of it as a oh Christ, I can't think of it.
Sure.
Yeah, or a cross that you have to bear.
But you also would have a stronger base in your life in terms of family, in terms of stable relationships.
Could have been. I mean, all these things when you grow up, when you grow through them, you don't really know the effects that it's having on you.
Right.
But it must have been something like that, because first time we brought it up was when the Beatles were splitting. And he said, why are the Beatles splitting up? And I said, well, they've gotten mixed up. They've gone through funny things. With the drug situation, they tried all different kinds of, experimented with drugs. He said, well, haven't you done it? I said, no, I haven't done. And he says, look, I have done everything imaginable to try and keep sane, which to me was strange.
I've nearly gone mad trying to stay sane.
Exactly. And he said he had done everything. He tried it.
So that was around the late 60s, 69,
Yeah.
68, 69.
Mm-hmm.
One of your fondest memories of that night is of a night in 68 when you jammed with him. You bought guitars and he had these notions about you and the Beatles and him. Was that just stoned jabbering, the idea of the Beatles plus you and him?
Well, I think it was wouldn't it be?
Fanciful.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he did say it.
Parker wouldn't even let you and he sing together on stage. Would you have wanted to?
Yes.
And it wasn't on because of
No, they used to watch
bootleggers and all that stuff.
when we would sing. The boy that I had with me at the time, not a boy, he's a man. His name was Chris Ellis. He was my road manager,
Right.
and from the old days, he used to drive the van in Wales and stayed with me for many years. When we were in Hawaii, and we were jamming in the suite, he slipped a cassette
Right.
on, and Joe Esposito walked over and knocked it off.
So you don't have any tape yourself of those
No,
sessions?
they wouldn't allow it, and they were always very
Right.
funny with cameras too, even if we were sitting around. So it was,
Esposito's home movies have shots of you and him, don't they?
but they're his movies, you see.
And stills, a couple of stills in there.
That's right. And when they were taking the cine, because there was some footage on us in Hawaii,
Yeah.
we were on the beach, we were at the pool, we were comparing moves by the pool. He was giving it this, I was giving it that. I mean, there's some funny
Good
stuff.
stuff, yeah.
And he said, "I'll let you have it. As soon as we get it developed," he says, "I'll send you." I never had it.
But they're now on sale publicly,
Yeah. Well, I said to Esposito, "Where's the
the rest of it.
film?" Yeah, but where is it? I don't know. He said, "This was just after. I don't know what happened to it, but they did have it." Because then Priscilla called me up, and she said, "I'm putting together home movies, and you were on some of it in Hawaii, and I have to have it as a release."
It's reported that you and Sinatra sat down once and finally tried to help Elvis ease the drug habit which killed him. Why did you never?
Well, Frank Sinatra said to me, "Have you called Elvis?" I said, "I tried to get through. They wouldn't let me through."
This was written near the end,
When he was in hospital.
Right.
And he said, "Well, I got through to him." And I said, "Well, I couldn't." I said, I'd called from London. I was living in Weybridge at the time. And I told them where I was, but I don't think they believed me.
Right.
And they wouldn't even admit that he was in the hospital. But I know he was. But Sinatra got through. Whatever. But I didn't talk to anybody before that. I just called the hospital, right away. And Frank said, he's in a bad way, and you should call him. He said, "Get to him and talk." He said, "I tried to talk to him." He said, "You try."
So you couldn't really do anything.
I couldn't. I used to try to. I would try, but he wouldn't. He would never admit. That the only time, well, twice he admitted was when he said he tried everything. Right?
Oh, yeah.
He had tried, but he didn't say he was
Or specifically what?
still on it. And any time he wouldn't drink booze, or very rarely he'd have a drink, but he was always drinking bottled water. But he would go into the bedroom and come out, and
Yeah.
but he would never say anything.
So it was kind of an open secret
Exactly.
among the group,
That's right.
because it certainly didn't get out into the public at the time.
No, but I met somebody that was at his house one time, a girl actually, and she said that she had been asked if she would like to meet Elvis Presley. So she says, "Of course." And it was in Hefner's house in Chicago. She was a model, and because she said, I just saw Elvis Presley. What a sad state he's in. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I was asked if I'd like to go to his house." And she said, "He's sitting there, he's overweight, and they're rolling one joint after another for him." And I thought, how the hell do you see this? Right? And I'm with him, yet he would not smoke a joint in front of me. He wouldn't, you know what I mean?
Well, maybe he had an image to maintain in front of you.
Maybe so.
Your arrival.
And he knew, I'd expressed my feelings about drugs.
About the whole drugs culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he stayed away from it.
You were also known to shout, though, "Get on with it," when he started rambling on stage. I mean,
Yeah.
he must have times got pissed off with the whole thing when he did his 40-minute monologue on karate.
Well, yeah, I would, I would G him up a bit, and say, "Hey."
Yeah, but
But you could only go, I never wanted,
so far.
yeah, I never wanted to upset him.
Right.
So I would do it sort of tongue in cheek.
Do you now wish you should have? You could have got there and grabbed him by the shoulders, or give a punch to the guys who were rolling the joints and keeping them.
I think I could have,
Stuffed up.
I think I could have done something. I think.
Yeah.
When it was too late, I thought, Jesus Christ, I mean, the man might have been reaching out and just didn't know who to reach to.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. And if you want to read some of the Tom Jones articles I wrote out of that chat and our 2 or 3 subsequent meetings, check joejacksoninterviewer.com.